Great, thank you very much. We'll get rid of the Ironman stuff real quick. Ironman was a company we bought in 1989. A gentleman that I worked for named Dr. Jim Gills out of Tarpon Springs, Florida, was a big-time Ironman athlete. We bought the company. We didn't know what we were doing with it. We had some fun with it. In '97, I took a 6-year leave of absence from the real estate part and went to work, and we built Ironman from a very small company to a pretty large company, and then the next guy came in and made it a gigantic company, and it's now a $1 billion company that's owned by a bunch of Chinese guys, and there are about 300 races a year that are run year-round in the world, and you probably saw it on TV, the Ironman World Championships. We produced a bunch of those and all, so we had some fun, but that's not why I'm here today, so we're not going to talk about that. But every time I do this, somebody raises their hand and says, "Oh, I Googled you," and all they talk about is Ironman, so we'll get rid of that. So my name's Lou Friedland, and I guess I'm not supposed to do that. Okay. So I was at University of Florida from 1967 to 71. Got a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration in Marketing and Economics. Found out that in the 60s, being a marketing guy made you the CEO of a company. If you wanted to look at a big company, all the CEOs had marketing degrees. So I thought, well, I want to be a marketing guy. In the 1970s, that really changed, and all of a sudden the finance guys got to be all the CEOs, so I decided I'd go get a degree in accounting. And so I went to University of South Florida, got a degree in accounting, passed the CPA exam, and then decided I didn't want to be an accountant anyway. My wife tells me I'm the true bull gator because I went to both of the schools. So, in 1975, I went to work for Coastal Engineering Associates in Brooksville, Florida. It's an engineering firm that does a lot of land development in Hernando, Citrus, Sumter counties. How many of you guys are from Florida? How many from West Central Florida? Any? Okay, a few of you anyway. When I went to work for them, I actually went to work for them as an accountant, but realized early on in the process that most civil engineering firms really didn't have a good grasp on helping their clients with the economic side of land development. So because I was a numbers guy, they would ask me to do projects for them, and we eventually created a department there where the people that were coming in to get civil engineering advice and services also then got to have some cash flow advice and those kind of things. And we actually built a pretty good sized business doing that. One of my biggest clients was a guy named Dr. Jim Gills, who was an ophthalmologist, and he took all of his money that he made in the 70s and 80s, and he bought 54,000 acres of land throughout the state of Florida. And he was a doctor, and he was really busy, and he didn't really know what to do with it. So he formed a company that is called Gyra today, and in 1985 I went to work for that company, and there was a very specific reason why I went to work for that company in 1985. Prior to 1985, the state of Florida, you could buy a piece of land, split it in half, split it in 4 or 5 pieces, sell the pieces to folks, and make some money. In 1985, there was a guy named John DeGrove who was a professor at Florida Atlantic University, and he realized that an awful lot of projects, particularly larger projects, were only being studied by the county that they were in. So if you were in Hillsborough County and you built a project in Hillsborough County with 25,000 houses in it, and it was right on the border of Pasco County, you never had to talk to Pasco County about impacts, things that were going on, what effects it would have on other areas. And he proposed to the legislature what eventually became Chapter 380, which was the DRI, which is Developments of Regional Impact. And so I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about those, and then I'm going to talk to you about what changed, because now today most of them are called Master Plan Unit Developments. And then I'm going to talk to you for the rest of this project about what happens in a large-scale project as it relates to cash flow and why these projects are so difficult to manage on a long-term basis. And so there are 3 of these projects that I was very involved in, And some of you, if you're from West Central Florida, might know them. One was called Timber Pines in Hernando County. The second one was Seven Hills, and the third one is a current project we're working on called Trinity Communities, which is right on the Pinellas, Hillsborough County, and Pasco County line. And then we'll just finish it off with some conversations about some of the traditional financing. So again, talking a little bit about DRIs, in 1985, the world changed for guys that owned large tracts of land because people came in and said, well, what are they entitled for? What can I do with the projects? And it was like, oh, well, you got to do a DRI. You got to go through this study. And to try to define like a large-scale project for you, I consider large-scale projects that you believe from start to finish will take 20 or more years to build. And just to give you some magnitude. And that means that you're going to go through 2 or 3 cycles of strong and weak economic cycles. And it really changes when things are good and when things are bad in the real estate business, when you're in the development business. The DRIs that I worked on, and I worked on about 10 of them altogether, and just to give you some idea of what a DRI is, in the DRI world, they ask you questions about what's going to happen in your region when you develop your property. What effects are you going to have on transportation? What effects are you going to have on the environment? What effects are you going to have on education and schools? What effects are you going to have on all those things? So I can pass this around. I'm happy to do it. But this is what's called an ADA. This is a $2 million piece of, this in 1987, this was $2 million of studies that we had to do to tell Pasco County and the surrounding counties in the state of Florida what was going to happen when we built Trinity Communities. And it includes multiple maps, which you see a list of here, and it includes multiple studies. And each one of these studies is included in this or a supplement to this. I would have had to bring 2 boxes to supplement it all. And when you get done with it, you wind up with a development order. This is the development order for Trinity Communities. Okay, this development order is a contract. And it is a contract that includes something about every one of the categories that you see right here. It tells you what you have to do about air quality. And you have to measure it every so often. And what happens, are you polluting more than not? Water resources, water qualities, wetlands. We had a Corps of Engineers permit, a major Corps of Engineers permit for this project. What are we doing in floodplains? We had an economic study of how many jobs would you create, how many part-time jobs or short-term jobs like construction jobs, and how many permanent jobs would you have, and would they have a positive or negative effect on the community? Where are you going to get your water supply from? Where are you going to get your wastewater from? How much solid waste are you going to generate? How many kids are you going to put in the schools? How many new schools do we have to build? And it just goes on and on. And this contract, this is the agreement that I have today that was signed in 1989 that I still live by in Trinity Communities to make sure that I do all the things I promised I was going to do. Now, why is that important to you? If you're representing Wawas and you're out looking for a new site and you want to be in Trinity Communities, I send you a title policy. Everybody in here know what a title policy is? Everybody knows what that is? All right. In that title policy, it's going to say, this property is subject to the development order dated December 19th, 1989, between Pasco County and Adam Smith Enterprises. That's the name of the company that owns Trinity Communities. And they promised to do 1,000 different things. And if they didn't do all those things, you may not be able to get your building permit. So as the representative of the buyer for a single-family lot, for a commercial tract, for a multifamily tract, for a light industrial tract, they're all subject to this development order. So reason I tell you these things is this is going to be when you get into one of these projects and you go into any of them today, they all have development orders. And today, they closed down the Department of Community Affairs, which used to be in charge of DRIs. And they told the counties, you guys are now big enough and sophisticated enough to do them yourselves. So now most counties in the state of Florida, most counties in the United States now have MPUDs, which are master plan unit developments. It's just like a DRI. It's a little easier to do. There are certain things that you don't have to do, but they all come out with a development order. So as you are planning to do the things you do, and you're representing somebody, or you're out investigating a piece of property, and it's a large-scale development, you better read the DO, the development order. You better know what it says, and then you have to go ask questions. Did you build that intersection 2 miles away that you promised the county you were going to build before you put certain transportation on this street? Did you bring in the right wastewater lines and the size of them? Did you do your transportation study every 2 years to make sure you didn't put more people on the road than you promised you were going to put on the road? If you did, you got to build 2 more lanes of the road. So those are all the kind of things that happen in the development business that I'm in, which is very different than I know the development business that most of you think of. But we really are in the real estate business. That's what we do in a very different way than most people that are just building buildings and buying land to do it and those kind of things. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about cash flow, and I want to talk to you about projects, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 projects that I did, and you'll see up here a note that says, in the large land development projects, the third owner makes all the money. So of course you want to be the third owner, right? You don't want to be the first owner. Well, what does that mean? And what that means is most of the time, projects of this nature always take longer and cost more money and require more cash than people think about. And again, I'll go to the example of Trinity Communities. It took us 3 years to do our DO. It cost us $2 million to do it. We got through that process. Then that's when you start designing your project. That takes a year and a half. You get it designed, you start building things. Takes another year and a half to build lots. You get a builder or 2 in there. You start building homes. You open a model center. You're 6 or 7 years into this project. You haven't sold one thing or made 1 penny yet. And if you bought the land, and if we would have bought the land in Trinity Communities when we contracted for it, it was going to be almost $40 million. So how was I going to get $40 million to pay for the land and then do all these other things on top of it and everything else? So that's the trick, and you must be able to survive the slow periods. And believe me, if you're in the same project for 20 years, you're going to have a slow period. You're going to have 2 of them. You may even have 3. So here are my 3 development examples. The first one is a project called Timber Pines. Timber Pines was a U.S. home project, and this project was, Lennar now owns U.S. Home, but U.S. Home for many, many years was a really powerful company, and they had a retirement division. And in their retirement division, they built all these communities all over the country that were either named heritage companies or timber companies. So Timber Pines, Timber Springs, Timber Lakes, Heritage Springs, and they all had either the timber or heritage name. And they all had a golf course, a big amenity package, and the people moved in, and the homeowners association paid for all their golf and all the things that were with it, and they were very, very successful projects. So this is Timber Pines today. I'm going to try to do this, see if I. So this is Timber Pines today. It's this entire piece right here. It's about 2,600 units. This is US 19 in Hernando County, and this was the first phase. This is what they owned and built. They did a DRI on it, and if you'll look, and you'll see the line right here, it looks like they intended to stop the project right where they did. They built right up to the edge of the property line, and that was it. We owned this 640 acres of raw land right here. And U.S. Home was so successful that with this piece of it, they said, well, wait a minute, we could just add a couple of roads right here, build another little golf course right in here, and we could just keep this machine cranking, because they already had their model center, they already had their beautiful entrance features, they already had a big clubhouse, they had all those things, and so this was all going to be gravy money to them. So they came to us and they said, we want to buy your 640 acres. But they're a public company, and public companies hate balance sheet items that don't make any money, okay? So they weren't going to go pay us $10 million for this piece of land, and it'd take them 7 or 8 years to develop and build this piece of property. So they said, well, instead of us paying you $10 million in cash up front, we'll pay you twice that amount of money, but we're going to buy it piece by piece by piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to build this road and this golf course, and then we're going to build that little area right there, or this little area right here. And we're going to divide up the total number of homes that we have in here divided by the purchase price, plus a little interest kicker to go along with it. And piece by piece, they bought this entire piece and developed it. The good thing for them was they didn't have to put up the cash up front to buy the land. They could pay a lot more for it later on. Their stock price didn't fall because they had this big asset on there at the time that was a really negative asset. And if for whatever reason the market went away, they could just give it back to us. They didn't have to buy all the pieces. So you say, well, what would happen to you? Well, if let's say they bought the first part of it right here, but didn't buy the rest of it, we would still have the road, we'd still have the golf course. It's all owned and run by the homeowners association. I could have gone to 10 different builders and given each one of them a road in here, and I probably could have made twice as much money. So my risk was very, very limited. Their risk was limited because of what they had to buy, and their cash flow was manageable. And so that's a really simple example of trying to do something to keep the cash flow slow in the early years of development. And so this is a really simple example of it. So I'm showing you this first, and then I'm going to show you one. Did I do something? Or no? Okay. Never mind. Okay. I won't even ask. So, are we good?
No. I'll try not to. I'll try to.
Okay. Does he do this every class? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, the next project I want to talk about is Seven Hills. So after we did this project with Timber Pines, my team started getting organized to do some of the development ourselves. And Dr. Gills owned this 1,200-acre piece of land that he bought back in the late 70s. And I did a DRI on it. And the DRI on this was took about a year, cost about $750,000. And we were entitled with that, with our development order, to build 2,700 homes, a golf course, a hospital, elementary schools, and about 150 acres of medical office and commercial. So let's get this. So this was like the original sales plan. I'll show you. This is Pasco-Hernando County line, for those who know the area. And then about 4 miles to the west is US 19. And about 4 miles to the east is the Suncoast Corridor. And this road is Mariner Boulevard. And the reason this was an interesting project for us and other people was in Hernando County, there were 2 north-south roads from 41 over, and that was 41 was a north-south road that ran all the way through the county, and US 19 did. And in between those two, about halfway in between those two, was Spring Hill. So some of you might know the Spring Hill area. It was a Deltona Corporation. It was about 30,000 acres up here, and they built a road that started at State Road 50 and stopped right at our entrance, right there. This was all Spring Hill up here. And by us adding this road, we added a third transportation corridor for Hernando County to get north and south. And that was regionally significant. And why, when you do a DRI, you got to do regionally significant things. That was regionally significant for the transportation corridors. And it was so exciting for the county that we agreed to build 2 lanes of the road, and they agreed to build the other 2 lanes. And so we got a 4-lane road out of it for half the price to do that. So this project, let's see, what did I just do? I just turned something off. Oh, I hit the wrong button. All right, let's try that again. Okay. So I want to tell you in some detail about this project because it was kind of an interesting and creative way to, again, manage cash flow. So the property was already bought. It had been bought about 10 years ago. It was paid, I don't know, it was like $800 an acre. It was about $1 million for the land. Then we did, as I told you, the planning, the DRI. We built the roadway in between. And then we did 2 other things. One of the things we did was everybody wants recreational facilities in the new communities they have. But you go and you build a big clubhouse, and then you have a bunch of people working in it, and you have a few residents living in the community, and it's a real cash flow drain. So I came up with the idea of saying, well, there were no public pools in Hernando County at the time, not a single one. And so I went to the YMCA and I said, if I gave you 20 acres of land and I built a pool and a facility for you and it was debt free, would you take it over and just run it? And they said, yeah, nobody does that. So I said, well, I'll do that and we'll do that. And so Dr. Gills gave them the 20 acres of land and we gave them, and we built it ourselves. Cost us about $1 million to do it. And we gave it to the YMCA. And never again did I ever have to write another check to maintain a recreation facility, professionally run, professionally operated, took care of some charity needs in the area, good for the overall community. Both high schools put swim teams out and started swimming in the pool. And it was just a really positive thing to do. The other thing we did was we built a golf course. And if in today's world, nobody builds golf courses anymore. Somebody just told me there hadn't been a new golf course built in Alachua County in 30 years. Well, there hasn't been a new golf course built in Pasco, Hernando, Citrus, or any of the other counties in 10 or 15 years anymore. But at the time, golf courses were the thing. And the reason we wanted golf courses is because you got more money for a lot on the golf course, because we were in the lot sale business, than if you didn't have a golf course. So we built a golf course. Cost us about $1 million to build it. And the day we planted the grass in that golf course, we sold it for $1 million. So the guy who bought it managed the golf course, started it up, ran it. People that wanted to be members, he would sell memberships to them. People that didn't want to be members didn't have to buy it. About 80% of the people that live on golf courses don't play golf. It's just like, they just want a nice view in their backyard. That's what they want. So that's the reason golf courses don't work so well in today's world. And so then the next thing I needed to do, it says find a development partner. So I brought water and sewer to the site. I brought a road to the site. I brought a recreational facility to the site. I brought a golf course to the site. And I had a DRI that I could build 2,700 homes on. So I found a developer, and I went to the developer, and I said to him, I need you to build lots for me. And in Hernando County at the time, there were about 50 builders. There were no national builders in Hernando County at the time. But there were about 50 small builders, and each one of them had a little model center on Spring Hill Drive and all around. And they were all looking for lots all the time and everything else. And I went and I found 28 of those builders. And I said to him, I want to sell you one lot, and I want you to build a model on it. And then I'm going to have somebody build 250 lots. And you don't have to buy that lot until the day you get a contract from somebody to build them a house. So it's a house lot contract. They're going to sell my lots for me because they got a model center, and they're going to encourage people to live in there because they can have a lot right in there, and it doesn't cost me a penny to operate a model center or to worry about any of those things. So I found a development partner. His name was Deeb Communities. Some of you may have heard of it. The Deebs used to be down in St. Pete. They were big multifamily builders. Then the three sons came up to Pasco and Pinellas and built a lot of home communities up in there. And I said to these guys, listen, I want you to build me 250 lots. And I'm not going to pay you for them. But they cost them about $1,000 to engineer in at the time, and about $6,500 to develop the lot. And that was roads, water, sewer, drainage, entry features, walls, landscaping, all the things that you do. And then we're going to get builders to come buy the lots from us. And we're going to sell the lots for $25,000 a piece. That will be our minimum price. The ones on the golf course we'll get $40,000 for. And I'll give you half the money when I sell them. So, but until I sell them, you don't get anything. So they went in and built 250 lots for us. And we started selling them. We sold 28 of them immediately to the builders. They got $12,500. They invested $7,500. They made $5,000 on every lot. By the time we got done with the 2,700 lots doing it that way, I never put another penny in the project. They took out $13.5 million out of the project, profit after their costs, and we took out about $33 million. And I never paid for a piece of development other than the few things that I did up front, and it saved me. And I would have been at banks trying to borrow money. Was trying to do all kinds of things. I didn't have to do any of those things. They were absolutely could not have been better partners with us. And then we eventually built some commercial together in there, and we split the commercial 50-50 also. And we built public shopping centers, and we sold the hospital a piece, we sold the school a piece, we did a bunch of stuff. So here's the project today. There it is. There's Mariner Boulevard. There's the YMCA. It's a hospital here, an elementary school here, public shopping center here. There's now a Walmart here. There's 2,700 homes around the golf course. This is the golf course we sold. And this was a retirement community that was in there. Still got this piece. It's in fact under contract right now. There's like 25 lots left in there. And that was a creative way of going about being a developer without being a developer, okay? I didn't have to pay to be a developer in the way that you normally would. You would have invested, millions and millions of more dollars in this thing. And again, managing risk, not having a banker call you up. 6 or 7 years into this project, all of a sudden the market went really slow. And for a year or two, we hardly sold a lot. And during that time, I didn't have a banker call me up and say, hey, you got an interest payment due this month. I don't have any money. Which is why those guys lost those projects when I told you the second and the third owners make all the money. We really always wanted to be the third owner, and we had to keep pushing forward to do that. So that's the Seven Hills project, a little more sophisticated than the Timber Pines project, where we just kind of managed the process along the way. This one we were kind of active in throughout the process, and we did it that way. So then there's our biggest project, and the one we decided we were really going to be developers. We're going to be the real developers this time. And this is Trinity Communities, and some of you may have heard of that. It's about 4,000 acres. It is right on the Pinellas-Hillsborough North Line in Pasco County. That's the DRI I showed you. We started in 1989 with the development of that project. And in the DRI, we were entitled to 5,000 single-family units, 800 multifamily units, a couple of golf courses, a YMCA, sound familiar? That same kind of deal. 120 acres of light industrial, 175 acres of, I don't know why I'm looking up there, I got it right here too. 175 acres of retail and commercial, and about 30 acres of medical. We're about 90% done with this project right now. It's in its final phase to go. So there were some tricky things about this DRI that were different than the Seven Hills DRI and other DRIs that I had worked on. And we had some real significant issues with, and I'll show you a picture here in a minute, with wetlands. And there were a lot of wetlands on this property. became a big Corps of Engineers project. If you ever hear about Corps of Engineers projects, I'll tell you a story in a minute about how the Corps came out and how we worked together and those kind of things. We had some significant wildlife on this project that we had to mitigate for. 5,000 homes, we're going to put 10,000 kids in schools. Pasco County didn't have any room for 10,000 more students. And transportation in Pasco County, in 1985, when we started studying this project, there were 2 4-lane roads in the entire county. Can anybody name them? What were the 2 roads? I-75 was a 4-lane road, right? And US 19. That was it. There was not another 4-lane road in the entire county. Not one, not a single road in the entire county. So you go and put 5,000 new units in there, and you're going to muck up every road in the area for a long time, and you better mitigate for it, and so that's what we had to do. So here was our mitigation plan. We decided that we were going to take all of our transportation impact fee dollars for the whole project. Everybody know what transportation impact fee is? Anybody don't know? I'll give you. The county determines that every time somebody builds a house, you have to have so much more roadway. And so in Pasco County or Hernando and Hillsborough, and every county in the state has a transportation impact fee. So when you pull a building permit, they tell you, you got to pay $10,000 in transportation impact fees, and we're going to take that money and put it in a pot, and when we have enough money, we'll build a road with it. So they're always behind the curve because they're always waiting for the money. So we took and we added up all of our transportation impact fees for the entire project. It was going to be $22 million, which was a lot of money. And we went to the county and we said, honestly, by the time you guys spend $22 million and build a bunch of roads, we'll all be so old, our grandchildren will be trying to figure out how to do it. You know, it takes you forever to do it and those kind of things. So we made a proposal to them called pipelining. And in this pipelining proposal, we said to them, we will widen and build all of these roads. And if you built them, it would cost you $22 million to do it. We're going to build them. In fact, we also need 110 parcels of land from landowners along these roads that you're going to have to buy. And we'll buy it. We'll buy all the land and we'll build all the roads. And we'll do it in this time frame from 1990 to 1999. And we'll build them all. And you won't ever charge us an impact fee for transportation because we're going to build the roads instead. It's the best idea ever, except the state of Florida doesn't let developers do it anymore. I have no idea why. But so here's the story. We bought 109 of the 110 pieces of right-of-way by doing an appraisal on each piece of land and adding 15% to that appraisal and have a guy knock on people's doors and say, here's your appraisal and here's the strip of land we have to buy, and we'll pay you 15% more than your appraisal. And 109 of the 110 people said yes. And we wrote them a check, and we got the 109 pieces. The last guy, who was the guy that owns, if you're from Pasco County, there's on Little Road, there's a guy who's got a little thing where he sells water, bottled water out of his well over there. He was the only guy who wouldn't do it. We had to take him to court. He actually got less money from us than we offered him. But what the rule is in the state of Florida, anybody know what eminent domain is? Everybody know what eminent domain is? Okay. So if Pasco County decided they wanted to buy these 110 pieces of land, they would go to court. They'd say to the judge, Judge, we need these 110 pieces of land. We want you to order these people to sell them to me. And the judge will do that if you can prove the need. And it's pretty easy to do on right away when you got to widen the road. And then you go to the people and you say, you know, how much do you want to sell your land for? And you do appraisals. And they get to hire an attorney, an appraiser, an environmental guy, all kinds of people. And the county pays for it. And then you always pay them 10 or 15% more than the offer anyway. So we skipped through all of it. We literally got all 110 pieces in about 8 months. And And it would have taken them 3 or 4 years to do it. And so that's the first thing we did. So then we built the roads, and the whole package, when we got all done, buying the land, everything else, was about $18 million. So we did it about 20% less than the county could do it. Same contractors, just a little better negotiations. And we bought the land and everything in the process. That was a significant mitigation piece for what we did. It was regionally significant because Pinellas, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I got the wrong thing. Pinellas County, those rascals. You guys know where East Lake Road is? They call it McMullen Booth Road. It's got a bunch of different names. Goes all the way down from the Pinellas Pasco line all the way down to State Road 60. And it's a big, wide 4 or 6 lane road now. Well, Pasco County decided when they were going to widen it from 2 to 6 lanes, or 4 to 6, 2 to 4 lanes, they were going to stop right there. Because the only thing that people that were on that road were doing was going to Pasco County. And they could care less whether the people went to Pasco County. So they didn't build that section of the road. So it's part of our regional mitigation to get people to go between the crossroads. We widened that piece of the road. Just as a side note, they started 3 years before us. We finished our road 6 years before they did, and we built our section on a per mile basis for about 35% less than they did. The exact same road with the exact same design all the way through. But that's the difference between government building roads and private guys who really care about their money building roads. I won't get into all that, but we'll get into the politics of that. So this is the original Trinity Communities property. It was called the Mitchell Ranch. Some of you might know the Mitchell family. There's Mitchell High School up there now. This was the original Mitchell Ranch, and this was the Jim Mitchell Ranch. This was Uncle Jack's ranch, and this was Mr. Jim's ranch. And it was a wait till you see what it looks like today. So this is McMullen Booth Road. This is Veterans Village. Some of you might know that. This is State Road 54. That's the old West Pasco Airport. Some of you might remember that. We actually eventually bought that and have developed most of that now. And when I talk to you about wetlands, this right here was called Duck Slough. And a slough is a creek, a babbling creek. And right across here is the Eldridge Wild Wellfield. And in Pinellas County, if you lived in Pinellas County, all the water you drank came out of the Eldridge Wild Wellfield. And the wells were right along this line, within 10 feet of our border. And the guys that own the well field, all these wetlands in here were completely dry, dead trees, dead cypress trees. It was all dry. And the guy from the Corps came out one day, and he had a Jeep, and on the top of his Jeep he had a canoe. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm going to canoe down Duck Slough and see what it looks like." I said, "Well, before you take that off the roof, let's go take a drive. And don't worry about it. We won't even get your feet muddy." And we walked about half of Duck Slough before he finally said, "There's not any water in here." The reason there's no water in here is because those wells right there sucked out and every drop of water out of that thing and killed all of the wetlands in there. So one of the regionally significant things we did was we went to the Water Management District. You guys know what a Water Management District is? Southwest Florida Water Management District. They're the districts that manage all of your stormwater and everything else. There are 7 of them in the state of Florida. And the Southwest Florida Water Management District managed this property. And we said to them, we need to put our drainage somewhere when we build asphalt and roads and rooftops and everything else. We want to take all of our water, and we don't want to put it in drainage retention ponds like you see down the side of the road. We want to put it right in the wetlands. And we're going to rehydrate those wetlands. And we did a scientific study with them as a partnership, and they gave us a permit to dump every drop of water that we drain directly into the wetlands. Never do it today. But those are the prettiest, most healthy wetlands today you've ever seen in your life. It absolutely worked. It was a regionally significant deal. It was the first partnership with the Water Management District ever done like that. And it was very successful for the environment. If you go in there today, it's full of bunnies and bugs and all kinds of stuff and lots of water. So, here I am back again trying to figure out how to deal with cash flow. And this was a $40 million purchase. It was $10,000 an acre for 4,000 acres of land. It was a big purchase. We didn't have $40 million, and even if we did, we didn't want to give it to the landowner. And so the guy who was before me, my predecessor, when I was working on Seven Hills, he was working on the beginning of this project, he cut a deal with the landowner and said, we'll take it down in 10 one-year increments. We'll pay you $10,000 the first year for the acreage we buy, and $11,000 the next year, and $12,000 the next year, on and on and on, like a 10% increase. So I get there, and I start thinking to myself, I got a project that's going to take me 25 or 30 years to build. And I'm going to pay for land today that I'm not going to use for 15 or 20 years. How am I going to manage that kind of cash? So, I did it again, didn't I? All right. So I had to determine a purchase price in a way to convince these people to be my partner. And that's what I did. And I'll come back to this map in a minute, and I'll come back to that map. But I want to show you this map. I know it's out of order, but. So let me go back to this map. You see this map right here? I took this map, and I figured out every single tract of land I was going to develop on this site. I knew they were going to change some, but in 1987, 88, I had to make a determination. That's what Trinity Communities is going to look like. And I counted up all my lots, and I said, if I sold every one of those lots that day, one at a time, to 5,000 different people, how much would I get for every lot? And I had a price on it. And if I had an acre of commercial land, how much would I get that day for that piece of property? And I made those calculations, and then I said, well, how much is it going to cost me to actually buy the land from the Mitchells? And so now you'll understand this map better. I said, I could sell every lot for $50,000 a lot if I could actually find 5,000 people that day to write me a check, because they were worth $50,000 if I developed them. I hadn't developed them yet. And I have 800 multifamily units. I could sell those for $12,000 a unit, and 120 acres of industrial, 175 of commercial, and 30 acres of office. When it got all done, I said, that's $358 million worth of retail sales if I sold every piece that day on that amount. Now, these numbers aren't exactly accurate, but they're pretty close. What I owed the Mitchells that day, if I bought all the land, was $36,920,000. And I divided those two in each other, and I said, that's 10.31% of my retail price of what my lots are going to be. So I went back to the Mitchells, and I said, we need to have a meeting. And it was Mr. and Mrs. Jim Mitchell, Jack Mitchell, and Dewey Mitchell. Some of you probably know Prudential Tropical Realty in Pasco and Pinellas and all those areas. That's Dewey Mitchell now. But this was his family's land. And I said, we can't buy your land from you at $10,000 an acre and $11,000 and $12,000 because I can't carry land for 20 years or 25 years, actually 30 years now. I can't buy a piece of land today that I can't sell for 25 or 30 years. It's just going to be impossible for me to do. But I have a proposal to you, and here's my proposal. And let me go find it in here. Hold on just a second. I said, here's my proposal. I'm going to take this land, and it's all growing. It's growing from Pinellas and Hillsborough County. We're next. It's all going to happen here. And the lots that I show you that are $50,000 today, I think in 5 years they're going to be $75,000 or $100,000. And I think the multifamily land is going to be worth $15,000 or $20,000 an acre, a unit. And I think everything is going to grow. So if you'll work with me, I'll pay you a percentage of every lot and every parcel I sell for the next 30 years on this property and give you 10.31% of whatever the retail price is. I'm going to do the development. I'm going to pay for the development. I'm going to pay for the roads, water, sewer, drainage, walls, all the other things that go along with it, all the DRI stuff, all the other kind of stuff. But you're going to get paid the retail value, 10.31% of the retail value of every lot the day I sell it. So if I sell 200 lots this year, every time there's a closing, you're going to get a check for 10.31% of the retail price of it. And it's going to be way more than $36 million. If you believe that what I believe, which is in the next 20 years, inflation's going to make this stuff worth a whole lot more than it was. So, okay, let me go back to, okay, this is Trinity Communities today. So this is Trinity Boulevard. That's the old airport site. This is actually not the newest map in the world. This map's actually about 2 years old. If you guys know the Starkey community, that's right here. I-75, Suncoast Corridor is about 3 miles to the east. This is Little Road. It goes all the way through the county. That's Little Road. And this is the 4-lane road that we 4-laned, which is McMullen Booth Road, East Lake Road, and those kind of things. Yep.
What is the minimum criteria for a project to be qualified, to be developed as a DRI?
The number's different in every county, and back when they did, but there's actually a threshold in big counties, in counties that were over, I don't know, 1 million people at the time. I don't remember the exact number. It was 1,000 residential units or more. It was 2,000 residential units or more. It then became, in medium-sized counties, 1,000 units or more, and then 500 units or more was the threshold in small counties. There was also an industrial, if you're building like an industrial project, I think it was 40 acres or greater in any county, that was a DRI. So there were thresholds that, and if you go back to Chapter 380, it outlines every threshold for every county. And then every time they did a census, sometimes your threshold changed and those kind of things. So in a lot of counties, you'd see 999 units because they didn't want to go into a DRI, so if it had a 1,000-unit threshold. So anyway, this kind of gives you what we did. Oops. This is all residential community. There's the 2 golf courses. The YMCA is, there's Mitchell High School. The YMCA is right there. And this was Trinity Oaks, the first community in there. And kind of gives you some idea. If you haven't been down State Road 54 in the last 3 or 4 years, you won't even recognize what's going on there. But that's what that used to look like, okay? That was it in 1985, 86. That's it today. It's a little bit of growth and about $1.7 billion in taxable property in Trinity Communities today. So good economic boost to the county, along with a lot of other things. So,
Question.
yes, sir.
Can you talk in a little more detail about how you reinvigorated the wetlands?
Yeah, well, we just dumped water in it. Literally, discharged all our water into it. It was starved of water. In the world of hydraulics and hydrology, and I know that we have some civil engineers in here, Pinellas County says all of our wells are 500 feet below, that's where we suck the water out of. So it couldn't, 2,200 feet away, it couldn't possibly affect those wetlands. Well, today they've shut off all those wells because the big well field is now in the middle of Pasco County and all the water comes down from there. The moment they shut that water off, all the wetland levels went up about 2 feet. I mean, in weeks, not in years, in weeks. And, you go to them and say, so, and they go, we don't have any explanation because we couldn't have possibly drawn them down, but they did. It's just what it is. It's, you're sucking millions and millions of gallons of water to feed Pinellas County every day out of 10 wells, and you're drawing everything down around it. And, they have these the circles, that show where it's supposed to be drawing down. These wetlands, they were just dead. If you saw them today, you couldn't believe how much difference they are. But they're really, they were brown and 90% dead. And as soon as we dumped water in them, it was shocking how quick they came back. So it wasn't great science, and everybody said it was a terrible idea to take this water and discharge it directly from drainage off a road into a wetland. But it was really, every time we tried to calculate putting it in a drainage retention pond to clean it before we dumped it into the wetlands, you didn't get enough water out on the other side. And so they said, yeah, we'll give it a try, and if it doesn't work, we'll change it. And it worked so well, it became a pretty popular project at the Water Management District back in the years we did it. Yes, sir?
So piggybacking off of that, why did they choose to reroute the water to the wetlands, and why?
They didn't reroute the water. They just sucked the water out of it from underground.
So they didn't redevelop the drainage network to feed it?
Yeah, well, we developed a drainage network. We have, it's probably hard to see on this map, but the water starts over here and it comes out of some lakes, and it comes through here and it comes through here and it comes through here and it comes out and around, and it winds up in the river. There's a river down over here. At each point, we actually built weirs, these walls that were about 200 feet long and about 10 feet high, and we stopped the water in the wetlands and let it fill up and then discharged it out and going down. So there's there's a weir here, 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 and there's a weir here. And it slowed the flow of water out and kept the water in the wetlands longer and discharged it. So it was just, it wasn't great science, but it worked really well. And it became a regionally significant thing that we got credit for. It's part of our right to develop the property that surrounded it. Anybody else have any questions? We'll do a bunch of questions afterwards. So, okay, so let me stay where I am. So the Mitchell said, well, why would I do this? Why would I not take my $36 million over the next 10 years versus being your partner? And so I said, well, here's what you can do. I'm paying you a percentage of what I sell it for. So my job every day is to get the most money possible out of every piece of property. And every time I get more money for us, I get more money for you, because it's a percentage basis. We know that if we build nicer things, we'll get more money for it. So I can build nicer things if I don't have to pay you for the land until I sell the property. We're all working together. We're all on the same team doing this kind of thing. We know that the path of growth is coming to the north, and we know that the quality of what we're going to build in here is going to be substantially better than anything anybody else had built in Pasco County up to that time. And in fact, we were talking earlier today about people that lived in Pinellas County just never thought in the 80s that Pasco County was much of a place they'd want to live. Bad schools, not good health care, bad transportation, all that kind of stuff. So we built, there was a guy named Charlie Ruttenberg. Anybody know that name? Know the name Ruttenbergs? U.S. Homes were the Ruttenbergs, but Charlie was my original mentor. And I sat down with Charlie one day, and I was telling him about this project, and he had built Countryside. Anybody know where Countryside is? The Countryside Mall and the Countryside area? Well, if you went to Countryside in the late 70s, Countryside was an orange grove. And Charlie built Countryside Boulevard right through the middle of this orange grove, and then he started building houses in there, and it became a very, very nice and high-end successful project. And he said to me, Lou, you need to build a road in Pinellas County. Don't let them know they're going into Pasco County. You need to go build a road. I said, Charlie, this road's going to cost me millions of dollars to build. And he goes, oh, and you can't build the 2-lane road. You got to build a 4-lane road, and you got to make it really fancy, and you got to make people feel really good. You can't let them know that, every time Pasco County puts the sign up that says entering Pasco County, you want to take the sign down. You don't want them to even know it. So we built Trinity Boulevard. And I talked to some people from Pinellas County, and when they were kids, they never went to Pasco County to do anything because there was no shopping there. Wasn't the good stuff. So we had to create an image for Pasco County, which we think we did pretty successfully, of better schools, better roads, better health care, those kind of things. And we tried to contribute to all those pieces of it. So at the end of the day, here's where we are these days. Let me go back to, okay. Our average lot sale price today is about $135,000. We told them at $50,000, that's what they get. Our recent contract for a multifamily piece was at $23,000 a unit, okay? Our industrial land is selling for $400,000 to $500,000 an acre. Our commercial land starts at about $700,000, goes to about $1.5 million an acre, and our office is about $300,000 to $400,000. So that $36 million that they would have received is about triple that. And I never paid for a piece of land until I sold it. And that was the trick to having enough money as a small company to build a big project. So my whole purpose in talking to you guys about this stuff today is that you got to be creative. You got to deal with, you got to deal with things that people never did. I mean, I can tell you that the Seven Hills project that we did with the partnerships, I know 10 or 12 landowners that did exactly that deal where they brought the developer in, he built the lots, and then they sold them. There are people doing it all over the state now and maybe in other parts of the country. But there's critical things, there's a lot of things that are unexpected. I mean, you can have permitting problems, you can have change of governments, you can have natural disasters, you can have interest rate increases like we're having now, things that change demand. In 2006 to 2008, I can absolutely tell you that nobody thought the world was ever going to stop in the real estate business. You couldn't put a high enough price on a piece of property and not sell it. I mean, every day we'd raise our prices, they'd sell. They'd raise our prices, they'd sell. In 2008, we didn't see another buyer until 2011 or 12. If you think going through 3 or 4 years without a dollar's worth of cash flow isn't painful, it was really painful. But we didn't change our pricing. We didn't have any debt. I didn't have to pay the landowner. I didn't have to pay a mortgage. I didn't have to do those kind of things, so I could stay longer. When 2011 and 12 came around, things got better again. I was sitting in a bank board meeting the other day, and they go around the room at the end of the bank board meeting and ask everybody how things are going in their area, and they always want to know about what the real estate market feels like to me. And I told them, I said, things are so good right now, I just can't even imagine it. It feels like 2008 again, and everybody in the room got quiet. But we just never thought it was going to end. But there are economic cycles, and I can guarantee you, if you're in a project for 10 or 20 years, you're going to feel an economic cycle. So that's pretty much it. Just, I just kind of tell you, try to be creative and those kind of things. So I'll take some questions. So, yes, sir.
Is there anything you do to hedge against the cycle coming?
Well, some of the things that we did was we always built small amounts of inventory at a time. We never did, we never did really big inventory projects in case things slowed down. If you go out, you can go out right now and you can look in Pasco County, you can look in Sarasota County near Northport and places like that, where these enormous projects are being built. And right now, the big national companies have a lot of cash. And they're just building like crazy. But I can guarantee you that if it slows down, their stock prices are going to plunge. They're going to, you know. I had a conversation with a guy one time. He was used to work for Ryan Homes, and you might know the name of that company. And Ryan Homes was one of the big national builders. And he was in charge of the Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Hernando area. And he said to me, Lou, I built 1,200 homes this year. And so my next year, just to keep my job, I got to build 1,350 homes. The next year, I got to build 1,500 homes. And you know, he goes, it's a rat race, but that's what public companies want you to do. He had to plan 4 or 5 years ahead of time to get 1,500 lots 3 or 4 years from now. By the time you found a piece of land and you developed it and you did all those kind of things. Nobody looks long term that I see in the home building business, in some of the land development stuff. It's like get everything you can get today, and we'll worry about it if the interest rates go up and things get slow. So that's what I've seen a lot of. And then you see these projects that are half built, and you wait long enough and you buy them for next to nothing, and you become the third owner. Anybody else? I'm sure this is not your normal discussions of the kind of stuff you guys discuss, but thought you'd be interested.
So I know you didn't pay for the land on that last project, but did you finance any of your other development costs?
Most of it we actually did from the cash flow that we got from Seven Hills. It was actually cash, all that cash that we got at Seven Hills, we put that into it, so we didn't actually do hardly any financing at all. It was some good fortune and some good planning and some good luck in the process, but traditional financing is pretty difficult. You know, there are companies that use like the California Teachers Retirement Fund that has a 20 or 30 year horizon, and they can be a partner with you and fund all your stuff, or an insurance company, those kind of things. We also didn't mention CDDs today. I hate CDDs. I've seen them really good, and I've seen them really bad. And we just decided we weren't going to do them. And we sell, if you go into Trinity Communities, you go into any of the residential communities, the first thing you see is a big sign that says, we don't have any CDDs. And we sell against that, and very successfully. It's a good way to get some of your infrastructure done, as long as you keep selling. But when things get slow, if they get slow at the wrong time, you know, one of the things that I think about is, okay, I find a piece of land today. It's right in the middle of the hottest area around. I go make a deal with the landowner. I go through, whether I do a DRI or I'm just doing a regular development permitting, it's still 2 or 3 years. I build some homes, I build some models, I do this stuff. It's 4 years from now. Is it going to be as good 4 years from now as it was today? The day I decided I mean, everybody wants to be a developer today because it's really hard to screw it up. But when things are slow, you better, you know, put your big boy pants on, so to speak. It's a lot different. Yes, sir.
You mentioned, so in 08, right, to get through the tough times like cash flow is important. Presumably in 08, right, you didn't have a buyer for 4 years, and probably not for any of your other communities either.
Right.
And so I mean, you minimize your risk by taking small chunks and not paying for the land. Are you living off basically company equity at that point?
Yeah, you are. Yeah. We could, because we're really, I mean, my organization at its peak had 12 people in it. We have 7, 8 now. So we're a small, you know, we hire out all the engineering, we hire out all the contracting, we hire out, you know, and we can turn it on and off as we need it. You know, we're not one of the big giants that has 600 people in the big building over there, you know, with huge overhead. We don't make as much money as they do. We're not but you know, we found ways to be in the real estate business the way we wanted to be in the real estate business.
What are like some other major design changes in the master plan world? So like golf course used to be the centerpiece. If that's not it anymore, what are you guys doing to?
Well, we're not. I graduated in 1971. My goal in life right now is to not do any more projects. Okay, I'm gonna be 69 next week, so it's kind of on the, it's kind of time to go play with the grandchildren and do that kind of stuff. There are a lot of changes going on. We talked a little bit earlier in the day about it. Things are changing all over. Somebody asked me earlier about, well, did you have a lot of technology things that were going on? In the late 80s, there was no technology. There were no cell phones. There was no computers. Yeah, there were computers. There was hardly any internet, those kind of things. We didn't think about that. Today, I go to the ICSC meetings once in a while, which are the shopping center conferences. And, I just built a public shopping center 2 years ago. I had to put 500 parking spaces in that public shopping center. If public starts delivering and Uber gets more and more successful, as I think it's going to be, I'm going to have 350 parking places in that shopping center that I never use. So if I'm designing a shopping center today, I'm trying to figure out, what do I do with that land when the county finally realizes I don't need 500 parking spaces in there anymore? And I think that's going to happen. It always takes longer than it should. As it relates to recreation and things like that, you see a lot of these guys that are doing these small shopping areas that have a lot of entertainment in them. So instead of doing golf courses and clubhouses, they're designing around community areas, centers, town centers, those kind of things. The difficulty that you have in large projects like ours is, in 1987, if I told people that I was going to build $1 million houses on a golf course in Pasco County, they would want to know what I was smoking. I mean, I obviously wouldn't, because the houses, they were $49,990 at the time, and that kind of thing. So you have to, it's really hard. And today, I think it's even harder to know what's your community going to look like 20 years from now when you have the last 3 or 4 pieces in there to develop. It's tricky to figure that out. I don't have the answers to it. So. Anybody else? Did I wear you out? Yes, sir.
So I actually have 2 things. So like for your question, actually, look up Serenity, which is it's a community in Georgia. So what they do is, so instead of like having like a golf course be where they derive their value, what they did is they had a policy in place where it's like if you build a home, you don't cut down trees within 4 feet of like the perimeter of like the actual structure. So what ends up happening is they derive their value from like being amongst like an old growth forest, which they have a lot of in Georgia. And then my question to you is, so my background's more in urban regional planning, and so what we do is like we look at like suitability analysis for like quality of life and stuff, but that can be applied to like ROI as well.
Absolutely.
Back when you were developing these communities, what were like the biggest factors that you looked for in terms of figuring out where to locate them?
Well, the gentleman I might as well take a minute and talk about it. The gentleman that I work for, Dr. Jim Gills, is this remarkable surgeon. He's an Ironman athlete. He's this amazing guy. And when he used to train for Ironman races, he used to get on his bike and ride 100 or 150 miles on a Sunday afternoon to go train. And on Monday morning, he would come into the office, and this was actually before I got there in 1985, and he would say, here's the map that I rode my bike on this week, and I saw this real estate sign on this piece of property next to a power line. Call the guy up and see how much he wants for it. And he bought 54,000 acres of land that way. So I didn't select my locations. If you would have actually seen on the map, you'll notice that both Trinity Communities and Seven Hills both go through have a major power line that goes through them. He picked them because that's where they were at the time. So we didn't pick them, but path of growth, you know, is always what people are looking for is what is the trend, you know, and it always takes a little longer than you think. I mean, 20 years ago, we thought Pasco County was just going to go crazy when Hillsborough and Pinellas got built, and it took longer than that. But, you know, you read about where these new companies like Amazon just picked a couple new locations. Boy, wouldn't you love to own 500 acres of land within a couple of miles of their new headquarters, you know, that kind of thing. It's, you know, you study patterns, study transportation patterns, you study growth patterns, you study, you know, who's moving where and those kind of things. And if I was picking land, I'd spend a lot of time doing that.
Anything else? All right, thank you.